find other great podcasts like this one at podmoth.network.
What time is it? Let me check my watch. Oh, it's bone o'clock. In olden days, a glimpse of femur was only for morbid dreamers, but you're not alone. Bring anything bones. Two goofy gals with deathly interest go on a skeleton inquest in your headphones. Anything bones.
Hello and welcome to Anything Bones. I'm Sophie, it might be Mercury Schwartz.
And I'm Katelyn, Magician's Assistant Heart.
Ooh, I've always found you to be quite magical.
That's very nice of you to say, thanks. You too.
Aw, thank you. But I'll tell you the magic I'm really thankful for.
What? Sorry, what?
Oh my god, Katelyn, a man snuck into your house and pushed you away from the microphone to ask what?
I was overcompensating because I went, what?
I like all the facets. But what I will say is that I'm thankful for the magic of better audio equipment.
Hell yeah.
If I sound a little clearer, that's why. I'm so sorry about last week's episode where it sounded like I was recording inside of a tin can, inside of a goat, inside of an airplane. So thank you all for listening to that. And thanks so much to everyone who came out to the Maple Daddy show. That was so much fun. So great to be back on stage doing a live show, especially with our friends, the Stoner Chicks.
It was a fun show, for sure. I had fun.
Yeah, Katelyn was there representing the pod.
I was in the front row for sure.
You were. It was very funny. My boyfriend was there and he was sitting in the front row, and then so many people came to the show that another row had to be added in the front, and he pretended to be mad about being bumped back to the second row. But he wasn't really mad.
Yeah, it was great. It was a lot of fun. Good to be out. Live comedy is so fun to see.
Yeah, and so fun to do, but very stressful. Right before I stepped out on stage, I felt like my heart was trying to do some sort of violent crime against the rest of my organs. But yeah, so happy to be back recording.
Yeah, back on our podcast bullshit.
I'm still jazzed about my new microphone. It's so cool. And I've got a pop filter that's the size of my face, and I feel so official.
Yeah, mine is in the mail, so hopefully next week we'll both sound crispy like Rice Krispie treats.
Yeah, like a bowl of lettuce, we will be crispy and
we
fresh.
will be heard.
We will be heard. Like lettuce, we will be heard. Famously vocal vegetable lettuce.
That's funny, because I don't think I've ever seen you eat lettuce.
Never. Maybe once or twice in my life, under duress, perhaps. When forced to, sword to my throat, I will eat the lettuce. I like the concept of lettuce. How about that?
Yeah. I think you should give it a try some point before you die.
Nope, it's a cursed plant. There's a ghost in there.
Okay.
You can't fool me. That inside all those leaves.
I thought I was being really kind, giving you the rest of your life to have a piece of lettuce.
That is kind, and about as long as it'll take me.
Okay, so I'll go first with my bony tale. But really quick, I had to pick something this week that was on the lighter side. Because goddamn, if it hasn't been just a horrific time in the news. With all the shootings. Why does anybody have an assault rifle? Anyway,
couldn't tell ya. Really couldn't.
Yeah, so I just, you've listened to this podcast before, Sophie. I like to do true crime stories typically, but I just was like I wasn't feeling it this week.
No, and you have the right to switch up whatever type of topics you want to do. Like, this is our podcast.
This is Anything Bones. Anything is in the title.
It's in the title, but you do gotta, you gotta get back to the bones, though. I'm sure that you do.
But it might as well be like whatever you want, bones.
Yeah. Yeah. It's choose your own adventure bones.
Yeah, that's just a little bit too much of a mouthful, and we wanted something a little more catchy.
Yeah, something that had better SEO.
Yeah, exactly. So my sources for this, right off the top, Atlas Obscura, mylondon.news, and then an article from Vice.
Ooh, are we going across the pond?
What made you guess?
Oh, nothing. Just a sneaking suspicion. Those lettuce ghosts whispering to me.
Well, we are, in fact, going over to London. Quickly, we're going to go back to the 1830s.
Just real quick.
Real quick. The story doesn't super take place in the 1800s, but... So I'm going to be talking about London's Highgate Cemetery.
Okay.
And it's a cool place, but just hold on to your butt.
I got 2 hands on 2 cheeks, baby.
Good. One on each cheek. Okay. So we're in the...
Is that how you think I'm doing it?
I did, but I could be wrong. I can't see. You're just a little picture on a screen, so...
Leave it up to the listener.
Spicy. Let me say that again, because I covered my mouth when I said spicy.
Yeah, let's get that clean.
Spicy.
Nice. Thanks for the options.
So in the 1830s, these magnificent 7 cemeteries were created. This was like an effort from the city of London to get the dead bodies like out of the main city because it was just like too crowded in there, and also like kind of a health hazard. And also they wanted to like use the land for things other than dead people.
Yeah, we've seen this before happening with, like France and in Italy as well, of like, it's getting gross in here. We have to move everybody.
Yeah, we're gonna do something here. So there are 7 cemeteries in the Magnificent 7. There's Kensal Green, Highgate, West Norwood, Abney Park, Nunhead, which I'd like to know more about.
Yeah.
Brompton, and Tower Hamlets cemeteries.
All of those are fantastic names for cemeteries.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I think Atlas Obscura said that Highgate Cemetery that we're focusing on was like the first body was buried there in about 1839. It's a star-studded crowd in there.
Oh.
Not Karl Marx is there.
Okay, all right. That's someone almost everybody knows. Yeah. That's a big get for cemeteries, really, though.
Yeah. So it's this really cool Victorian Gothic cemetery, and there's just it's pretty overgrown in the pictures. I'm just gonna send you the link to the Atlas Obscura article because there are just like a lot of pictures in there. And for the listeners, there will be a link to this article in the show notes. If you want to look at all these pictures, I'll definitely post some on the Instagram. Just go to view all photos at the top.
Aw, shit. This is a grown over cemetery, and it has so many interesting and unique headstones. Like, I'm seeing everything from your classic, like, angel lying on top of a above ground crypt to, like, I'm seeing some, like, stone urns on top of headstones. We got crosses.
There's crosses. There's crosses, like, buried in ivy. It's crazy.
There's your classic, just like, the cartoon, headstone. Beautiful stonework, I'm guessing, on the building here. Oh, shit. There's a beautiful picture. You should definitely use this one of this, like, angel between 2 trees, like, on top of a headstone.
Yeah.
That is beautiful and haunting. What I would do to take a walk here. Oh, my goodness.
Honestly, I'm ready to go back to London. I'm so ready to go back. And then I think I studied abroad there in 2013, and that makes me feel old, and I want to go back.
I know, I was thinking about that like, I was, like, talking about it, and I was like, oh, I lived in Ireland in 2014? Oh my god!
It was so long ago, it feels like. Okay, so anyway, after it started, this cemetery was, like, popping off. Everybody and their mother wanted to be buried here.
I can see why.
And it just kind of gradually, by the end of World War II, we're jumping way ahead. It wasn't really a happening spot anymore. It was kind of overgrown, as you're seeing in the pictures. It needed some repairs. Like, it wasn't a good vibe. I think it has fallen. It's still kind of in that kind of like decrepit, creepy way right now. But I think it works. It works for Highgate.
Yeah, I don't know, with cemeteries, I'm kind of almost of like two minds about letting them get this way. Because like, part of me is like, that's the charm of the place, is how overgrown it is, how wild it feels like, nature's taking it back. But the other part of me is like, these cemeteries, we've seen ones where it's gotten way out of hand. I think you covered a Jewish cemetery where a guy, a young man who wasn't even Jewish, took the time to restore it himself.
That's right.
Along with volunteers. And so it's like, I think there's merit in both. But like, the way this one is overgrown is like the perfect, like,
it's
amount.
Perfect.
Yeah, it's perfect, you guys.
Don't change anything, please.
Don't move a vine.
So, World War II ends and the cemetery's kind of fallen into disrepair, but it gets kind of not a revamp, but people become reinterested in it in the 70s because it becomes a place where this movie studio Hammer does some horror films.
Okay.
Which I think is cool. I would watch a horror film from the 70s, honestly.
Yeah, that sounds like it would be fun. I feel like that level of effects I could maybe handle.
Yeah. So the films help to kind of reintroduce the public to this cemetery, which I guess wasn't really in use anymore. And then the media started getting reports about grave robbing and like grave desecration. And I shit you not, vampires.
Oh, so this is where we're going.
Yeah.
Oh my god. Okay, but like, aren't we over grave robbing by the 1970s? Aren't we past that? Come on, you guys.
Yeah. We should be, but people were super, super into it because they thought there were vampires in the cemetery. So they're like, let's go get them.
Let's go get them.
There were reports, quote, of a sinister, dark figure with blood-red eyes who appeared to glide above the grounds.
Oh my god.
Just
this is
chilling in
everything.
Highgate.
This is everything.
So, a man named David Ferrant, he is a Wicca enthusiast, according to this article.
Okay.
In this paper, Hampstead and Highgate Express, he claims that he saw this figure floating around the cemetery on Christmas Eve, 1969.
Nice.
Yes. And he claimed that there were dead animals found in the cemetery all the time, which some of my sources did say and some of them didn't. So it was like, I don't know if this is true or not, but it's intriguing.
Also, animals just die sometimes.
Yeah, but it said that they had no blood in their bodies.
Oh, of course. Of course, they had no blood, and we know that for sure.
100%.
100%.
Okay, so David Ferrant, right? His opinion gets published.
Sure.
And then another guy comes into the picture, and his name is Sean Manchester. And he was interviewed for an article called "Does a Vampire Walk in Highgate?"
Oh my god, this is great.
And if you were wondering, they spelled vampire Vampyr.
Of course, the Y is the fancy way.
What does Manchester think is going on? I'll tell you. Quote, he claimed that the figure was in fact a king vampire, a medieval black magician who had practiced magic in Wallachia, the home of Dracula, before being buried in the cemetery. His body, Mr. Manchester claimed, had been resurrected by a modern Satanist, and his demonic form now stalked the graveyard at night. End quote.
Okay, guy, if you have a good idea for a gothic novel, just write it. don't
Right?
write it into the newspaper. I would read that. That sounds like a great novel, guy. Come on now. No need to tell lies. Just write your kick-ass vampire fan fiction.
No,
That
these
is
dudes
so
are
wild, so
these dudes
specific.
are 100. They're 100% serious too.
I mean, and we covered like Vlad and Wallachia and all that stuff. This is a king vampire. Like, I love that that's the specificity is there. How did he know he was a king? Well, he just did. And he was resurrected by a local Satanist because, of course, and now, instead of giving him somewhere to stay, they just let him roam around the fucking cemetery. Cool, good, I love it. Great plan.
And the only guy that knew was this guy, Sean Manchester.
And the only one who can save us is Sean Manchester.
So he apparently performs like exorcisms. He kills vampires. This source says that he was some kind of bishop. Sounds like a vampire cult to me, but okay.
See, here's the thing. Again, an unhinged vampire hunting occult practicing bishop who goes after the king of vampires? Like, shit, man. That's a Netflix series. Like, why aren't you writing this in a better way that I can read it?
Well, this should be a movie because it just keeps getting better. So Manchester's like, I have all of these qualifications. I'm going to be the one that gets rid of the king vampire.
Oh, sure, Sean Manchester. You think you can step to the king vampire? We'll fucking see. So
David Ferrant is kind of thinking that something's going on. But he says that, whoa, this has been blown way out of proportion. The newspapers haven't helped at all. Like,
he's just a duke vampire. He's not a fucking king. Come on.
You're not wrong, because my source says that he thought, quote, the figure was in fact nothing more than your common garden ghost.
Okay. All right, guy. Okay. First of all, ghost shaming. I don't like that. All ghosts are special. Right? Secondly, yeah, I guess I was spot on. He's these exaggerated claims. It is no king vampire. It is merely a gentle specter.
The stories were getting wilder and wilder, and the TV news picked up on it. So there was a report. Apparently it was on Friday the 13th, 1970, March 13th.
I keep forgetting this is all happening, like, in modern times.
This is real, and this happened in the 70s.
That's buck wild.
So there's a report that airs about what's going on at Highgate, and then an angry mob shows up at the cemetery and is so pissed off and scared. They're like, we're gonna get this guy.
Oh my god, they're coming for the king of vampires.
Oh my gosh.
Holy shit.
Manchester went so far as to say that he was gonna lead a vampire hunt every night until it was caught.
Okay, where is he making the money here? Like, how is this continuing? Everyone is into it. Like, I don't know, I would be into it. I'd be like, hey, Katelyn, grab a fucking doobie. We're gonna go hunt a vampire king. Are you kidding me? It's 1970-something. Oh my god.
I knew you'd like this.
I'm obsessed with this.
I know.
I'm almost a little mad that I did not find this. This is so funny. Oh my god. A mob of people.
A mob. So, despite efforts to, control this mob, they did unfortunately get into the cemetery and do some damage to the corpses.
Jeez, come on, guys. That's not funny. It's okay to gather your mob, but don't do anything with it.
They opened up a bunch of graves. They beheaded some corpses, put spikes in them. Yeah, and it wasn't just that night. It really did just happen frequently.
Okay, Sean Manchester, you are less funny now, and now you are a criminal to me.
So, despite all of this, the mob, the hunting, this weird rivalry between Ferrant and Manchester,
I would love to
growing.
see them. Yeah, I would love to see them take that to the streets.
Mhm.
Where is the duel between them?
Stop. You can't give away the story now.
I don't know this story.
It's literally about to happen. So they're like, oh, I'm going to kill the vampire. No, I'm going to kill the vampire. So they keep fighting about this. And then
Oh my God.
flyers start to show up in London advertising a magical duel on April 13th, 1973 on Parliament Hill in Hampstead.
Oh, I know that we joke that we have a time machine where we can go back in time, but I would love to be there for that. I would love to see that flyer on a corner in London and be like, what the fuck is that? We're going. We're going.
But I'm scared.
I'm scared. I'm also taking notes. What is
Mhm.
happening? They're going to have a magical duel. I mean, imagine if you knew nothing about this and you just saw a flyer for two guys who are going to have a magical duel. And it's 1970, whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so this TV special aired in 1970, and then this duel is happening in 73. So this has been going on for a minute.
For 2-3 years.
Yeah. So I'm sorry to burst your bubble, but they never actually have a duel.
Oh my god, there's no justice in this world.
No. There were a bunch of rumors that they were gonna sacrifice a cat, and it was gonna be maybe in the presence of naked virgins, is what it says here, but that makes me uncomfortable to say.
I don't love either of those things. I liked it better when they were maybe throwing some glitter at each other and doing kind of like a scavenger hunt through the cemetery to try to find the king vampire. That was funnier than killing cats and weird stuff with virgins.
Yeah. I don't know about that.
Leave
but
the virgins alone, you guys. Come on now.
The duel never happened, so it was probably fine.
It was probably fine.
Ferrant was arrested in 1974 next to Highgate with a crucifix and a wooden stake.
For what? For being awesome?
He was apparently convicted of damaging graves and like interfering with a dead body.
Well, he is guilty of that, yeah.
Yeah, he definitely did that. Where are you going with your stake, guy?
Hey, guy, what you got there? It's like, oh, this isn't my stake. I'm holding it for a friend.
So Ferrant eventually sues News of the World. I don't know if that's a newspaper or a program, because they made him look like he had killed a cat, even though he claims that it didn't happen. It probably didn't.
That seems like one of those, like, the National Enquirer, like, Bat Boy, like, Hillary Clinton went off in a spaceship, like.
Well, the end of the vampire apparently happened when Manchester, he says it happened, so I really believe him. He says that he drove his wooden stake through the king vampire's heart and burned the body, and we're all good now.
Gosh. I was right. Sean Manchester is here to save us all. Thank you.
He did good.
You know what, everyone? Why don't you take a moment today and thank Sean Manchester for everything he's done?
So this story has stayed interesting for over 50 years. And it's got everything. It's got vampires, but the thing that it mostly has is this crazy rivalry.
I love a rivalry like this. Like, when you have two people who are on almost the same brand of buck wild shit, but they disagree on, like, one very specific point, and neither of them will let it go.
Oh, no. So they literally feuded up until Ferrant died in 2019. Manchester is still alive, and he will stand by his story to this day.
Holy shit, these people are still alive!
Yeah, one of them is. And I have to tell you about their accolades and, like, what they did. So Ferrant started the British Psychic and Occult Society, but then Manchester, he simply founded the British Occult Society. So very different.
Super different, both of those.
Yeah. So Manchester published a book in 1985 that was called The Highgate Vampire. And then in 1991, Ferrant released his book Beyond the Highgate Vampire.
That's so petty. Oh my god.
And up until his death, Manchester would never skip an opportunity to call Ferrant a convicted felon, which he was.
I mean, I guess, rude to bring it up, but if it is true.
So if you wanted to meet Sean Manchester, you probably wouldn't be able to, though. Because in 2013, he did retire from public life. He wanted to just have some time for, quote, creative contemplation.
Sure. Is he finally going to write the fucking novel of the century?
No. So, this Vice article was written by Francisco Garcia. And Garcia wrote to Manchester, like, sent him a Facebook message, which I love.
Oh my god.
Yep. I'm just going to finish with a quote by Garcia from the Vice article. One of my questions led straight into the admonition that, quote, had you actually read my published account, you would already be aware of the answer. Others were more ambiguous. When I asked if he would ever consider returning to Highgate, he replied that it remains, quote, a matter of public record, that I would do so if I was able, but always discreetly and absent of any media intrusion, which is precisely why I do not confirm or deny that I am doing so currently or recently.
Oh my god, he's still working on the case.
He's at it. He's still at it.
He said he killed the king vampire, but I wonder if the king's disciples are still out there.
We don't know.
God, Katelyn, that might be one of my favorites you've brought in almost ever. That was, I never heard of that.
No, me neither.
Be amazing. Because we love it when, people get really into this shit, like vampires or ghosts or zombies or whatever. But I love it even more when it's as close to us as possible, timeline-wise. This is, so recent. In the span of Anything Bones. This is so recent.
Yeah, I found it. I think I just searched, cemeteries on Atlas Obscura. And I happened to click on it. And I was reading Atlas Obscura only had, a few paragraphs about it, and I was like, what?
I know, sometimes they do that where it's Atlas Obscura, you seem to be missing the point.
I need more. But it is it was a good jumping off point. Atlas Obscura is a travel website, so it was more what you want to know if you're visiting this place, which I was like, yeah, I'd like to know.
Yeah. Damn. It's sad that the king vampire, was definitely killed by Sean Manchester. But God, I hope that this gets made into a movie. Maybe that's our responsibility. Or a Netflix miniseries, or Hobogo picks it up. Because, again, like you were saying, the rivalry is what makes this hilarious. The fact that it's in the 70s, the fact that it's vampires, the fact that he's a king vampire, the fact that everyone got into it. They were going to have a duel. Yeah. I can't get over this. It
never stops giving.
That was such a fucking terrific story, Katelyn.
Thank you.
Great job. What a gem. But the only thing is that I don't want to alarm you, Katelyn, but I'm going to need you to look out your glass door there. Because right now, out my window, I'm seeing several vampires who look like they've been sent by the king vampire.
Shit.
And they look like they want to have a word with us.
Yeah, maybe we could do an ad break so we can have a moment with the vampire minions.
I think that's appropriate. Okay, vampire minions, get your asses in here.
Hey, what's up, you guys? I'm Catherine.
And I'm Haley.
And we are Saturdays Are for the Ghouls, a podcast on the Podmoth Network. We cover all things spooky, like horror movies, true crime, the supernatural, and spooky stories.
In the most chaotic way possible.
So join your favorite ghoul friends every Saturday wherever you listen to podcasts.
And become a spooky babe.
So spooky babes, we'll see you
in your nightmares.
Well, vampires, I'm glad we could come to an arrangement. We promise that we will not publish this episode. We promise that no one will hear about your story.
Yes, the king's death will remain a mystery.
Yes, and like we said, thank you so much for coming.
Goodbye.
Goodbye. Oh my god, I'm so glad they're gone. Ridiculous. They totally left a mess in here. There's blood bags everywhere.
All right, tell me something about bones.
I will. Okay. So you decided that you were going to do something lighter, right?
Yep.
So without talking to each other at all, I decided that I would slide over into Katelyn's seat and do a little bit of true crime myself.
Oh my god.
Oh my god, she's doing it. But what I will tell you right off the bat is that this is a true crime story, but it is not a murder.
Okay. Crime, not murder. That happens.
Not murder. What we will be talking about today is the Tri-State Crematory scandal.
What?
Yeah. All right. Some sources right off the bat. We've got Wikipedia. We've got Web Archive within that, WDEF.co, WISTV. A lot of these are like local news stations.
Mm-hmm.
WSTV again. And a third one, New York Times, TimesFreePress.com, TheOrderOfTheGoodDeath.com, and then a YouTube video by Caitlin Doty, our favorite mortician.
Yes.
The Tri-State Crematory scandal is what has been called probably the biggest crematory scandal in American history. And it really shook the public as to like their view of cremation and the trust between, you know, funeral homes and crematory services and the people that they serve. Now, our story takes place in Georgia, and we're going to start with the establishment of the Tri-State Crematory, which is in the mid-70s.
Hey, 70s theme. Didn't plan it.
Nope, but we're going to jump a little bit forward in time, so don't get too comfy in the 70s. Yeah. So the Tri-State Crematory provided thousands of cremations for people in Georgia, Alabama, and Tennessee. And this was really important because in these areas, it was a lot harder for people to have access to cremation. So this was a crematory that was providing that. It was founded by Tommy Marsh, who was like a locally respected businessman. When he ended up getting sick, he ended up turning that business over to his son, Ray Brett Marsh, in 1996. And a little sad for Marsh Jr. is that he had to drop out of college where he was on the football team. So he was making kind of a big sacrifice in his life to go back and run his father's business while his father kind of battled his own like medical health problems. And between 1996 and 2002, upwards of 2,000 bodies were taken for cremation at Tri-State. Brett ran the business for 6 years after his father's death. But, a little bit after the business was taken over by Ray Brett Marsh, there started to be some rumors circulating about how this crematory conducted themselves and things that were seen upon this property. In one incident, a propane delivery truck driver had complained on at least 2 occasions to the Walker County Sheriff's Department about seeing bodies on the Tri-State property.
You shouldn't be seeing those. Those should be in the morgue.
Right? This driver had made a fuel delivery, and he went to the sheriff's office and called them about it because he was freaked out, and they ignored it.
Yeah.
In some sources, they say they sent someone out there. Some sources, they say that they don't. But the sheriff's office, either way, didn't really do anything about it, didn't look into it too much. Investigators were called numerous times with a couple of different complaints of people witnessing bodies in different areas of this property, because it wasn't just one crematory building. It was kind of out in the boonies, so it was a larger property with several buildings on the property, which were for different purposes. But between 2000 and 2001, there were many different complaints to the local sheriff's department about the activities going on at Tri-State. And at this point, they could no longer really ignore it after the Environmental Protection Agency had also been contacted about Tri-State.
Yeah, that's quite a few agencies that need to do something now.
I know, when you're calling the EPA, you gotta get on it. So it's rumored that in early 2002, the EPA did receive an anonymous tip that there was something going on at this crematory, and they apparently sent an officer out there to look at the grounds, and they didn't see anything except for a human bone and part of a skull. This is just a rumor. This was on Wikipedia, but it said it needed citation, and it was cited in several other sources, but I just want to put it out there that is unconfirmed.
Mm-hmm.
What is confirmed is that on February 14th of 2002, they received another anonymous tip, federal agents did, that someone who was walking their dog near the crematory property found a human bone. Just straight up.
Yeah, like a civilian on the sidewalk.
Yeah, just a person walking by.
Okay, yeah, that's not a good look.
So, on February 15th of 2002, the very next day, they send investigators over to the property, and they end up finding piles of decomposing bodies. Yes.
Just in the backyard, or what?
In storage sheds, in vaults,
No.
Scattered inside and outside. And on the first day alone, they found 49 bodies.
What the fuck?
Right?
What were they giving the loved ones when they said they were giving them ashes?
We'll talk about that in a second.
Oh my god.
So, February 16th, the crematory operator, Brett Marsh, who we talked about at the beginning, who took over the business from his father, is jailed on 5 counts of theft by deception, which I think is an odd way to phrase it. Investigators and search parties then go back to the property with more manpower to search the entire area. And what they found is trigger warning. This is horrific. If you're squeamish, please skip forward at least 30 seconds to a minute on this one. What they ended up finding is hundreds of uncremated bodies that were lying on top of each other, piled in caskets, inside of broken refrigerators, just out in the woods, piled on top of each other, near a pond. They found a body in an old hearse. They found bodies in almost every building on the property. And they even found one set of remains that was hanging out of the crematory retort. That is the cremation machine.
What the fuck?
Right?
What? Why? Wouldn't it be so much more convenient to cremate them?
One would think.
Oh my god.
But there were just hundreds of bodies laying out in everything from the clothes that they were supposed to be buried to nude to hospital gowns. So many different types of people, because many different funeral homes in the 3 states surrounding, in the Tri-State area, that we said the name, they all send these bodies to be cremated at Tri-State. And so basically there were 5 years of bodies hidden, or really not so hidden, all around this property.
Oh, 5 years? Oh no, that's disgusting.
It's really hideous. So basically they get a bunch of police down over there. A federal disaster team is brought in with a portable morgue from Maryland. Thank you, Maryland. And they begin to try to identify the remains, but it's really, really difficult because some of them are embalmed, some of them are not. Like, everyone's in kind of different stages of decomposition, and sometimes we're just working with literal skeletons.
Good God. That's just so not okay.
It's really hideous. And, like, you know, this, if we're looking in a capitalist society, if we're going to look at the cost of what this was a $10 million government cleanup on this one.
Yeah, we really pinched our pennies there, guy.
Yeah, right? So at the end of the search for remains on this property, they ended up finding 334 uncremated bodies.
Jesus.
And the thing that's most tragic to me is that only 226 were able to be identified. So it's over 100 sets of remains that, you know, don't get their identities back when they were supposed to have a proper cremation.
Well, yeah, and it's like they wanted to be cremated. They didn't want to be tossed in a field.
No, because if that's your wish, we've covered on this podcast that is perfectly valid.
Absolutely do that. But they wanted to be cremated, or their families wanted them to be cremated. It's just so, like, disrespectful.
Exactly. And you had asked me a question about what did they get back?
The family members, what did they receive? Yeah.
That would be powdered concrete dust.
No.
Yes.
Oh my God.
So that he gave them back concrete.
And he, he lost his dad, and he's like, oh yeah, this is how I want to treat people that have lost someone.
Yeah, it's really a fascinating choice.
Yeah, because it's like, I'm guessing that's not what his dad had envisioned for the business.
No, I think when Tommy founded Tri-State Crematory, that's not really what he wanted his son to do with it.
Wow.
And so, rightfully so, families in the area are fucking furious. Because, you know, if you were referred to this place from your funeral home, you don't know whether they got cremated or not, whether your grandma is one of these 334 sets of remains. Only, like I said, only a little over 200 of which were identified and, you know, able to be returned to family members.
Oh, that's so traumatic.
It's horrific. It's, you know, I'll talk about it a little bit later in the story, but it rehashes the death in a way that is that is absolute, like, dynamite to the trauma, dynamite to the grief, brings it all back up again. You know, talk about exhumation. Like, you know, it's a psychological exhumation that cannot be avoided when you think you've put someone to rest, but you haven't. You know, I'll talk a little bit more about that later, but, like, that's one of the things that, like, really gets me about this one.
Yeah. Yeah.
Fast forwarding to August 27th, happy birthday, Mom. Marsh gets released on bail for 159. How do you say this? 159, $200.
$159,200.
Yeah, his bail was $159,200. $1,000.
Is it? Yeah.
I'm terrible with numbers. Anyway,
his bail was over $159,000.
Thank you, Caitlin. And when he went to trial, almost exactly a year later in August of 2003, the indictment against Marsh cited 787 felony counts.
Oh, yeah.
So if you were to put all of these counts together, it would be thousands of years in jail.
Sure.
Mr. Marsh's lawyer, McCracken Poston.
Sorry, first name is McCracken?
First name is McCracken. Esquire, baby.
Okay.
So he says that he thinks that all of these felony counts are a bit of overkill, and he cites that, quote, where none of the allegations had anything to do with a living being. So I wanted to ask you what you thought about that. Like, if you thought that, like, it's appropriate to, like, lay these kind of charges against someone for the deceased. What do you think? Like, there's no right or wrong answer here, but, like...
Yeah, because it is, like, what's the where do you draw the line? Yeah, because I think my problem is that it doesn't just affect the dead bodies, it affects, like, their loved ones, and you can't sue somebody or charge somebody for hurting your feelings, per se.
I mean, but you kind of can.
But when you defraud them...
Yeah.
You know, like, I think the lawyer is minimizing, like, the point.
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of these charges were, like, fraud-based, like theft by deception, like failure to perform burial services, you know, all of this stuff, which at the time in Georgia, like, desecration of a corpse was not a felony. It is now. But it wasn't then.
I think he might have ruined it for everybody else.
Oh, yes, for all those other people who wanted to do weird stuff with corpses.
Oh, my God.
But one thing that his lawyer does make really clear is that the only thing that he did do to these bodies is fail to cremate them. Like, he didn't do anything else to them. So at least
what
there's
a relief.
That.
Good job.
Good job, guy. So Marsh ends up serving his full sentence. Some sources say 12 years, some sources say 13. But basically, it was out in 2016 and is on parole for the rest of his life.
Yeah.
You know, this is a pretty big one, guy. But in addition to this, in civil suits, 1,600 family members received $36 million from funeral homes who sent business to Tri-State Crematory, and the family settled with the Marshes for $80 million to be paid by the Marshes' home insurance. So, like,
I wonder if they've seen any of that money.
I would be interested to look into that more, but I didn't today. So part of his sentence as well is that he would send handwritten letters of apology to each of the 226 families of the identified bodies, which I think is interesting. When he was in prison, he earned a master's and a doctorate in theology. So here's the big question that we haven't talked about that's the giant uncremated elephant in the room. Why did he do this?
Yeah, good question.
Like, why did he do this? Well, there's no clear answer.
God damn it.
He will not give a clear answer. And it's really frustrating because a lot of the families are really upset because he can't tell them why. There's a woman, Janie Moore, whose husband was named Kirby, and he went to the crematory in 1998 and was never identified. And she, you know, is terribly upset because she doesn't know, you know, whether or not whether what she got was her husband's ashes or not, and they couldn't find his body, so there's no confirming that. And she said, quote, "I always felt like if it went to court, we would have some answers. I'm not going to get that now." Because even at his plea hearing, Marsh really couldn't give an answer. He said, quote, "Not for lack of a desire to give those answers, but the lack of the answer. To those individuals who were genuinely harmed emotionally as a result of my actions, I apologize."
Yeah, that's so weird. It's like, doesn't he have to allocute? Like, come on. I wish the judge had been like, no, why?
Well, I mean, I think they really pressed him on it, but he never, and even after this and up until this day, he has not spoken on this at all. And like,
that is so nuts.
People have a couple of theories on this, like why he did it, because he won't tell us. But here are some of the theories. The first one is that the cremation machine was broken. No, the cremation machine was not broken. There were some recorded problems with the cremation machine, but it wasn't broken. And here's the thing. So remember how I said that, like, he was in charge of the crematory for like 5-6 years? Well, thousands of bodies came through that point. So he was cremating more people than he left uncremated. Think about that. Why?
Yeah, how did he choose?
Yeah.
Also, it can't just be him working there. Like,
Right?
assumedly he has a staff. Like,
How do other people not know or say anything about this?
yeah, how does nobody else have any bad feelings about this? And it went on for 5 years. That's so crazy.
Yeah. I mean, one of the predominant theories that kind of explains the illogical nature of this entire thing is that it's very possible that he had mercury poisoning.
Okay. Oh.
So
I thought you were going to say a mental illness.
mercury poisoning can compromise your mental state.
Yeah, yeah.
And so what the theory is, his lawyer has this theory that basically dental amalgams in teeth, like stuff for fillings, pre what we're working with right now, contained mercury. So when those are cremated and vaporized, they, create a poisonous gas. And so they believe that the filtration or the ventilation in this crematory was not up to code, and that him and his dad, who died of, multiple organ failure, were just huffing mercury for years, which might be the reason that he made such strange and horrific choices.
At first, when you said that, I was like, no. But I hear you. I think that actually makes sense. It would explain it, at least. Nothing makes sense, but...
And they did end up giving him tests to test his mercury level, and it was quite high. So,
okay.
And he reported feeling more clear-headed when he was in prison. So it's possible that being away from the mercury kind of illustrated the part that it played. You know what I mean?
Yeah, shit.
And another point that was made by his lawyer is that people were like, well, was he lazy? Was he just lazy? But this is the point that he makes, and I make this point too. Hiding a body is hard. Hiding a body takes work. Yeah, this guy was a big football player. He was a big dude. But, to do that 334 times seemingly at random? That's not lazy. That's
no. Calculated in some way.
Yeah, I don't know what that is.
Oh my god, I've never heard of a situation like this, and it makes me so flabbergasted.
Right? And, as far as the families go, some of them will never, ever forgive this man. If mercury poisoning or not, it doesn't matter. It happened.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is, part of... I feel torn on how to feel because, after he gave his apology in court, this guy, Rusty... This guy's a great name. His name is Rusty Cash.
Nice. God, that's perfect.
I know, right? But he has something sad to say.
Oh.
Rusty Cash said about Marsh's apology... Rusty Marsh, who, for context, his mother...
Rusty Cash?
Rusty Cash, what did I say?
Marsh.
Rusty Marsh. So, Rusty Cash's mother-in-law, Norma Jean Hutton, was sent for cremation in 2000 at Tri-State. So that's his connection here.
Mm-hmm.
He says, quote, I thought that was as cold as dead. He doesn't feel sorrow. He doesn't feel grief for what he put my wife through. So, that's one perspective. But on the other hand, there are some families who have come to forgive him, who have come to, see him as just, the flawed person that he is. There's a man named Brent Hendricks, whose father, Ron, was one of the first bodies to be, improperly disposed of in the Tri-State Crematory.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a quote from him that says, quote, I think Brent Marsh doesn't know why he did it, and without mean-spirited motive on his part, I personally don't need to vilify him. He fucked up, and he spent a bunch of years in jail for it. Obviously, his actions were callous and criminal, but ultimately, I think his mind became disordered and then detached from the significance of his job. He lost control of something that he couldn't get back. Which, to me, almost brings up a fourth theory, or a third theory here, that things got out of control for him somehow. that, like, he lost grip on his job, on his mind, and things piled up literally. Yeah. Which, you know, I can almost understand, you know, when you get in so deep on something and you feel like there's no way to get yourself out, but it's the worst possible thing. It's the worst possible mess.
Yeah. He definitely, he biffed it.
As the guy said, he fucked up.
Yeah.
But I just think, you know, what makes this story upsetting to me is, like, the betrayal of trust between the death industry and the people that it serves. And, you know, death is something that we all have to face. And with something as illogical as this crime, it makes it even harder to reckon with it.
Mm-hmm.
When something that seems final seems to come back and rehash itself again. You know, these memories and these traumas literally rise from the grave for these families. And it reminded me a lot of, like, your unsolved cases when, you know, you get a clue after years, but it doesn't help it go anywhere, where it's like that loss of, like, we'll never know why this guy did it, and that's never going to help, you know?
Yeah. Shit.
I am almost finished, but I would just like to end on another quote from Brent Hendricks, whose father had been improperly disposed of by Tri-State, because I feel like this really sums up what effect this has on the families. He says, quote, "Well, as the gruesome details of the incident unfolded, I became more obsessed with the idea of my father's abandoned body at the crematory grounds. As I've said, the body had been embalmed and buried and then exhumed 7 years later in order to be cremated. But instead of being cremated, as one of the first corpses abandoned at the site, his body was left out in the woods in his dirty casket for 5 more years. That event conjured an experience of dread in me that I couldn't shake, and rather than simply imagining his buried body underground, I came to identify with his outcast bones."
Oof. That is so chilling and so sad. God.
I think it brings back these things that I feel like haunt me the most about these stories is, like, you know, the unidentified dead from the Titanic, the unidentified dead from this. You know, every time we lose souls in this way, it's really tragic. And thankfully, all of the buildings on this site have been torn down.
Yeah, that's super haunted.
Well, and it's actually going to be preserved and left in its original state as a memorial to those who were disrespected and neglected at this site.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, so, you know, their memory, you know, even though there are some that, you know, will never be identified, they still have a place to rest, which was more than they could say for when they were just abandoned there with no intention. You know, I think that's the difference with turning it into a place of memorial is the matter of intention.
Yeah, definitely.
But I've known about this funerary scandal for a couple of years now. I still can't believe I haven't done it up till now, but I don't know, it still chills me to the bones. I didn't send you any pictures because I did not want to. I have a picture.
There's
you
no
could
need.
See
yeah.
it. It's very tame. I chose the tamest picture. Do you want to see it?
Yeah, I'll see it.
Just so we can have something to put up on
the old gram.
Yeah. I mean, this is very tame, but it's, you know, a picture of some of the first caskets to be found. They're just stacked carelessly on top of each other.
Yeah, that's... God. Ugh. I mean, slightly better than just a pile of bodies, but still pretty bad and disrespectful.
I mean, I assure you those pictures exist, but I wasn't going to look for them.
No, there's no need.
No need. Well...
Great job. Shit, I had no idea what they were getting up to.
Right? Can you believe?
No.
You know, I just want to round this out with saying crematories are 99% okay. Like, that's not a real statistic, but, like, this is such an out-of-the-box thing that happened.
This is so out there. Yeah, it's nuts. What a buck wild episode. What are we doing?
This one was a real ride, but I'm into it.
All right, boneheads. Well, you know, keep it keep it weird, keep it light if you want, or keep it up. How about that?
If you see the king of vampires, make sure you stick a stake in his heart.
Yeah.
Always do your job fully.
And always carry a crucifix and a wooden stake.
Yes, sir. And always opt for what's called a witness cremation, which is where you can go and watch the cremation. And some places even let you push the button.
Okay, interesting. That's probably better than the alternative, which is...
I'm just saying, then you see it with your own eyes.
Yeah, that might be the way to go.
Well, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us for this bony adventure today. Like Katelyn said, take care of yourself if you can. Find a moment to treat yourself to something nice. Always appreciate your bones. And... Bon voyage. Bye.
Thanks for listening to Anything Bones. Follow us on Instagram or Facebook at Anything Bones Podcast, or email us at anythingbonespodcast@gmail.com.
Thank you to Nick Kruger for our spooky music and Stephen Vetteroff
At Chubby Scrubby on Twitter,
for our jazzy vocals, and thank you to Camilla Franklin
at Camilla Strader on Instagram.
for our beautiful bony artwork. Please rate, review, and subscribe.
The mic,
and I had to rip in order to set up my mic the way that I wanted to use the mic stand that I wanted to use. I needed like a desk, and I don't have a desk, so I went and I took piled up a bunch of books, tried to get it because it's got one of those little clamps where you spin the thing to make it tighter. And I tried that with books. I tried it on a chair. I tried it on a bunch of different things. And finally, I just looked at my shitty dresser and ended up taking the face off of one of my drawers as a desk. Because I built it out of a Target, pack and, flat build, They just give you all the pieces. So, I was like, fuck it, it's just particle board. So I kind of kicked it apart, and now I have a desk.
Love it.